Good Friday, everybody. It's good to be with you all here on a Friday about lunchtime as we now come. This is our new Friday position at noon. And Matthew, last night, my friend, we talked yesterday about the importance of the game and why, we both think that Matthew Stafford is the MVP. And I don't think anything changed after last night. But I don't know about you, but I think we watched the two best teams possibly in the NFL play last night.
Yeah, on the Matthew Stafford thing, I think he cemented his MVP case last night. I know they didn't win. A little bit of odd circumstances, the way things worked out in terms of that game in total. That loss cannot be blamed on him. He put up 37 points on a top 5 passing defense. Not to mention he threw for over 400 yards and 3 touchdowns, no picks. All with the absence of a run game, by the way. They were averaging right around 3 yards a carry, which is just not really anything sustainable in terms of help when you're going against as good of a secondary as Seattle has. And in terms of the game, it means a lot because now that 1 seed is in Seattle's control. It's in Seattle's hands. They play the way they're supposed to these next couple of weeks. I haven't looked to see their upcoming opponents. But if they handle their business and they're in charge of that 1 seed, they're in charge of the NFC West, and the NFC will run through them.
Yeah, but I have a feeling we're going to see these two teams again in the tie for the championship game because I really don't. I mean, watching last night and seeing who I've seen, do you think? I mean, look, we both watched everybody. I don't see anybody in the NFC that's even come close to those two guys.
No, Philadelphia is fully. They're currently the top seed in the East. They're fully dependent on their defense. Their offense has been a big no-show. If you want to come back at me with they scored 31 last week, I'd tell you they scored 31 against the Raiders. Right. Everybody scores 31 on them. So there's that. The NFC South is a mess. Tampa just has not put it together, and if it's not Tampa, then it'll be Carolina, and I definitely don't trust them to win a game. I know they beat LA a couple weeks ago. That does not matter to me. I'm trying to think. I feel like I'm missing somebody.
Chicago is the other one.
Yeah, Chicago's the other one, and Chicago's an unproven commodity. So I'm not gonna sit here and expect them to make a deep playoff run. Ben Johnson's first year, Caleb Williams' second year. They still feel like a bit of an incomplete team. But in terms of both sides of the football, those feel like the most complete teams in the NFC, and quite honestly, probably the NFL.
Yeah, I would totally agree. I mean, there's really not even a team in the AFC that is as from top to bottom as good as either one of those two. But that's why they play the games, and that's where we'll find out. Now tonight it's Alabama. And it's Oklahoma and Norman as the college football playoffs get underway. And, man, I have heard, and I'm sick and tired, frankly, of hearing from Alabama people telling me how much that, all this stuff leading up to this game is meaningless. Tonight is the game. I'm like, okay, it is. You're right. But, unless they find a quarterback, they're not going to win.
Yeah, it is interesting. I'm learning something in real time that Alabama gets disproportionately affected by injuries in terms of big games, as compared to anybody else in college football. That was fascinating to me. I was unaware of that. But Kalen DeVore got up to the podium after the SEC championship and told everybody how much better they would be in a couple weeks after they got time for people to heal. They got a couple people back. Jam Miller's going to be healthy. He's not listed on the injury report. Cam Dewberry's not listed on the injury report. Both those guys missed the SEC championship, and they play a crucial factor in their ability to run the football. Josh Cuevas is listed as questionable, so his health still seems a little bit up in the air. The other big one they have is LT Overton, who will not play in this football game. This is a game for Alabama that all of the outside factors really kind of turned against them in a way that they had them prior. Now they don't. I actually just watched somebody was doing a report on the Alabama beat from Norman, and they talked about the lack of fan support that Alabama is going to have there tonight. Said said a plane, some form of a plane that was designated for a flight
Mm-hmm.
from Tuscaloosa to Norman, Southwest flight that was supposed to be really kind of basically chartering fans over there. In essence, was not full at all. Said it had like maybe 58 people on it. Said he's not expecting a lot of fan support in terms of Alabama turnout, at least in reference to a big game. And for Oklahoma, the question will remain: how healthy is John Mateer?
Right.
For all the injury talk about Alabama, Oklahoma's quarterback seems to have been dealing with something for a lot of the year.
Mm-hmm.
I've talked about it, a few times. I have this theory, and it's I have no information behind it. There's nothing.
Mm-hmm.
It's just purely something that it's my own little brainchild here, and that's John Mateer hurt his hand in Week 4 against Auburn.
Yeah.
Prior to that, he was a Heisman candidate. He
Mm-hmm.
had surgery on that hand. The only thing they said that they could really heal that hand completely after surgery was rest. He
Right.
didn't get any of that throughout the season. You want to toss
Right.
me a bye week, that's fine. It wasn't enough time. Like
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't the amount of time required for this hand to heal.
Right.
3 weeks was the amount of time. It said 3 to 4 weeks. So at this point in time, you would expect that hand might be a little better. And if we get the
Mm-hmm.
version of John Mateer back that we got in the early part of the season,
Right.
then Oklahoma's the better football team. Their defense is better, and then their
Mm-hmm.
offense will be better. I don't think it's that hard to see. R. Mason Thomas is coming back from Oklahoma,
Mm-hmm.
and if you're curious about R. Mason Thomas's impact, he matches Alabama's sack leader, and he played in 4 less games than Alabama's sack leader did.
Mm-hmm.
So he's an impact guy off the edge, especially with a little bit of that shuffle. Caden Proctor is a guy who NFL scouts are probably going to love in terms of his measurables. He hasn't been all that impressive this year, all things considered, and he's their left tackle. That's where R. Mason Thomas is going to line up.
Mm-hmm.
I think Alabama has their work cut out for them. I know that they're Alabama, but man, it feels like, especially these last couple of years, now more than ever, that big no excuses sign that hangs in their football facility,
Right.
you can just cross out that no because they got a lot of them.
Yeah. I was listening to radio in Birmingham this morning and also checking message boards. This is the first, I don't know if you've seen this, and you probably have heard some of it. This is a bizarre situation where I am actually seeing and hearing Alabama fans wanting them to lose so Kalen DeBoer will take the Michigan job.
Yeah, I scrolled through Twitter and people seem to think this is something that like media talking heads are just making up. It's not. Like I feel like an average Alabama fan, not somebody who really like pays attention to the program, is a little bit more plugged in. This is a common thought process, I think, among the common Alabama fan. Is it a correct thought process? No, not at all. But there are people who just like, they just don't feel like he's the guy. They don't feel like he's the fit.
Right.
And I would just, you got to recalibrate your expectations if you're Alabama. Nick Saban was not walking through the door. Nick Saban 2.0 was not walking through the door.
Right.
That's not happening. It was never going to happen. And it was always an interesting spot that they were going to be left in, because I think everybody outside of the state of Alabama or anyone who rooted for Alabama was acutely aware of what the expectation was going to be for the new head coach. And that expectation was unreasonable, because now you're asking somebody to come in and follow up the greatest of all time and replicate results. Just not reasonable for them. And, it feels like they've almost made things harder on themselves in a weird way. Like these coaches, they hear this stuff, whether or not you believe it, they do hear this stuff, and they do get fed up in hearing it as well. And if I'm Kalen DeBoer, I probably would have been a little fed up with it at this point as well.
Well, and it's not Michigan is not, is Kalen DeBoer on the radar? They'd be foolish if he wasn't. But from everybody I've spoken to in Michigan, they're not in their concept for them is they're not in the poaching business. They don't want to go poach the coach at Alabama. Kenny Dillingham's a little different. because Kenny Dillingham is wanting. Yesterday was on 365 Sports. It's a Texas group, and they do a lot of phenomenal reporting. And we had a chance to chat a little bit before we went on the air about that. And they just had a guy from who covers Arizona State who said Kenny
Mm-hmm.
Dillingham and the AD are having some serious conversations about an extension, but
Mm-hmm.
he also wants to see. We talked a little bit about the fan support. He wants to see an increase in is this, or are they going to work? He's not asking NIL and that. That's all pretty much
Mm-hmm.
tightened up. But he's watching. He wants about promotion, about how can we get more people engaged, on campus and around Tempe to be, jump on the bandwagon here.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's kind of this interesting concept to me,
Mm-hmm.
where whereas like the board doesn't, the board's not leaving Alabama unless they throw him out. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't think that's going to happen. But Kenny, it looks like Kenny Dillingham is like begging ASU to care him as much about the program as he does.
Mm-hmm.
And if he doesn't feel that that's going to be the case, he might be willing to talk to or have his representatives, whom I'm sure have spoken to Michigan about what kind of deal that could have. But everybody at Michigan that I've spoken to tells me we're not going to poach a coach. We're going to go get somebody, possibly. And they had mentioned, by the way, um, a couple of guys who are coordinators in the NFL right now, and Todd Monken was one of them. And so they're. I'm assuming they've spoken to you know, uh, Todd's representatives, and of course, there's at least 3 more games for the Ravens in this season. But they're Michigan's not in a rush. They know that January is going to be here before they know it. But
Mm-hmm.
they also realize that regardless of who they hire, there's going to be guys in their transfer portal who are just going to jump as quickly as they could possibly jump. So, they're prepared to take a hit for a little while to get the right person.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, Kalen DeBoer's not going to Michigan tomorrow if he loses that football game.
Yeah, in terms of that, it is an interesting self-imposed standard that Michigan has on themselves. For whatever reason, I don't know if that's a potent saying you're not going to poach a coach, and
Mm-hmm.
based off the criteria that you set forth, it really seems like they're going to narrow their coaching search pool by a lot if that's not something that they're willing to do. Which I frankly just don't understand. You're one of the top 5 jobs in college football. You go out and you take swings at people if you want them to be your coach. That goes back to the whole, the Michigan man mantra and whatever, and what a big load of bullshit that is. Apologies for my language.
Yeah.
Um,
No, I was
but
just going to say.
but regardless,
Go ahead.
I was going to say, you said they're not in a hurry. Why? Why would they not be in a hurry? That I understand getting the right guy in, and that's important. A transfer portal window is also important. You've got a guy on your roster that's also important, and Bryce Underwood, to keep him there. Like there is importance that still lies with that transfer portal window, especially for Michigan.
Well, let's also understand that what they tell you isn't necessarily what they're doing. Okay, what
Yeah.
what they're telling, what they're talking about media wise, and what they're talking about behind the doors and all that sort of thing, is not necessarily what's going on. You cannot tell me that if they've reached out to, or certainly spoken to Dillingham's people, spoken to DeBoer's people. I mean, those are on the record. I mean, we know that has happened. Now,
Mm-hmm.
who made the phone call, right? Was it Kenny Dillingham's agent, or was it Kenny DeBoer's agent that made the phone call to Michigan? Um, so, no, I don't believe for 1 minute that they're not interested in poaching a coach. It's
Mm-hmm.
just which one and how does it work, right? I
Yeah.
think that's the key, because they've got a lot of tidying up going on. As you might imagine, the president of the University of Michigan is, about to rip apart that entire department for what happened. I
Yeah.
mean, that whole thing was something that, the Michigan's a very proud university about what they have academically and how they do things.
Hmm.
And, we talk about the Michigan man, but when it comes to the university itself, the university loves athletics, but they also are very, very cognizant of what they're perceived on both a national and a global look, because they get students from all over the world.
Hmm.
So this thing that's going on in the greater Ann Arbor area is a very, telling stain on it. And we talked about it. We said, how is it possible that that Michigan's AD and up the line didn't know this was going on,
Hmm.
and so they've launched an investigation into this, and maybe some of what is causing them not to hire a coach is how soon are they going to, get rid of the AD, and how
Yeah.
soon are they going to, to clean up. They got a mess to clean up, is what they're doing right
Hmm.
now.
Yeah.
And is getting a coach part of the process? Yes, but right now, is the AD going to be the guy who hires that coach?
Hmm.
And I
Yeah.
think that's probably more to the reason why we're seeing a delay here, as
Hmm.
opposed to whether they want to hire somebody. It's is this guy who is right now in the midst of a pretty serious investigation? Is he going to make it through?
Hmm. Yeah. And this is where I go back to the I said the Michigan man mantra is
Mm-hmm.
bullshit. Because they were aware of this. They were aware of this early.
Mm-hmm.
And had Sharon Moore stunk it up and they were well out of the playoff race early in the season, then Sharon Moore would have been bounced early in the season.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm really not sure they wanted him as their head coach the entire time. But I think he was hired really more of as a scapegoat for that scandal that they were going through when Harbaugh left. But yeah, in terms of the AD himself, it was something he was aware of,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not just football. And not only is it not just football,
Mm-hmm.
football's been going on for a while. Like under Jim Harbaugh, they had plenty of scandals as well. But it's across multiple sports in terms of what has been going on at Michigan in their athletics department, while Ward Manuel has been at the helm. So it has been a stain on the university in terms of their academics. That's something that they should be proud of,
Mm-hmm.
are proud of. All of that stands true, but their athletics department has been nothing short of a circus here recently, and especially under the watch of athletic director Ward Manuel.
Yeah, and I don't think he's going to survive this.
No,
Um,
he shouldn't. He
no,
shouldn't. I said
no.
that. I said that when this Sharon Moore story broke. I said
Mhm.
he was well knowing, and he's overseen a lot of stuff like this. At a certain point, there's a common denominator, and that's the man at the top.
There's a couple guys who have been very vocal about this that are Michigan men, and one of them is Dan Deerdorf. And for those, Dan Deerdorf is someone who um, many people um, of my age remember who Dan Deerdorf is. Um, he's a Bo Schembechler guy. I mean that, and he's a Michigan guy. Um, he has been, he just retired last season from the radio broadcast team with Jim Brandstetter. They were, did Michigan football for 30 years together. He was also on Monday Night Football as a commentator for many years with Al Michaels. Uh, Dan Deerdorf is a highly respected, person in football, no matter whether it's pro or college.
Hmm.
And he, from what I understand, is leading a group of Michigan alums who are just basically pissed off because they know that Ward Manuel is not the guy they want in there. And there has been some people that they're talking about. They like the idea of a general manager because Michigan has all the big sports. They've got a ton of money behind them. They got facilities that are second to none in what they do. So it's going to be they're going to bring somebody in, and it ain't going to be Ward Manuel.
Yeah.
Now, and I do believe because of the investigation, because of all this stuff that's going on, that they're really afraid to do something quickly and do it wrong, as opposed to maybe take a little bit more time and this time get it right. And okay, fine, if we lose a couple of games to Ohio State for the next year or two, we can do that as long as we get everything right. So I think that's where it is.
Okay. Is it me or?
Yeah, you were frozen there for a second. I think that
You there?
Can you hear me? Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me? We're having a little bit of a delay here.
Okay. Yeah, you were cutting out there for a minute.
Okay. And now Matt, you're frozen, buddy, with us at the moment. You were frozen there for a second. Yeah,
Oh,
you're okay. Right. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. Yeah, no, I mean, if I was in their shoes, I think they are probably upset because what Ward Manuel has done is it allows, like, it gives somebody like me a leg to stand on when I say the Michigan man mantra is bullshit, because before it may not have been. There's a very real possibility that there was a world prior to all of this happening where it wasn't, but it's gone and it's tainted it with the way that athletic department's been ran for a while now. And so, yeah, if I was one of those guys, it pissed me off too. I'd make sure I wanted to get it right too, because you want to restore what you believe was there prior, and really try to reclaim that integrity that you boast of.
When you step on the campus at the University of Michigan, then you go through the all the different places. They have a phenomenal hockey facility. It's called the Yost Ice Arena. It's really kind of a cool place. It only seats maybe a few thousand. You're right on top of the rink, and it's right there. It's right next to the building. It's been there since the 1920s, I think. You walk through history. I mean, there clearly is something there, and they do take everything seriously. And the other thing is their graduation rate and all the other things. But there are situations and times when things don't go right, and if that is the case, then you got to get it right and get it done right. And I think that University of Michigan will eventually get it right. I know a lot of people up there. It's a wonderful university. Had the pleasure of being doing stuff with them both in the Big Ten and also on other projects. But I have great respect for Dan and for what he does. And if he's leading the charge, I fully respect that they'll get back their reputation quickly. I mean, it's kind of like remember Vince Dooley at Georgia, right? It's hard to replace a legend, and Vince Dooley was a legend. And so to get it right, and it took not that Georgia had problems. It's just that Mark Richt was a good coach at Georgia. I think at the end of the day, they landed on Kirby Smart, and they're back on track again. And all that takes time in doing it right. And so there are a lot of schools. Alabama, we just talked about. Alabama's not happy with Kalen DeBoer. Most people would be, but they're not. So there you go. Let's go down to Saturday. That Miami game against A&M is going to be really interesting.
Yeah, one of the it's the hardest game I don't have really a great feel on this game, all things considered. I picked Miami. I'm gonna stick to that prediction. These are two teams that you don't really know a lot about, all
Right.
things considered. You look at Miami; they beat Notre Dame. That was really nice. And then they lost to the two best teams on their schedule after that. Same goes for A&M. They went up there. They went up there to Notre Dame early in the season. They won that game. Good for them. They went through the rest of their schedule, which was the bottom half of the SEC. They won all those games. You've got to give them credit where it's due. They handled their business. But the one team they played in the top half of the SEC was Texas. And Texas stomped them in Austin at the end of the year. And then, you go 2 weeks prior to that game in Austin, and you narrowly avoid a massive upset in when South Carolina came to town. It's a game, to be honest with you, that Notre Dame game, I go back to that one, and I wonder, even if all things remain the same, and this is based on partially the committee's reaction to that loss in Austin, if everything else is the same, and you flip that Notre Dame result the other way, I don't think A&M's in this playoff based off their schedule and what they've done. They're two teams that are built very similar. We know what A&M's defense is. They're number one in conversion rate on third down in the country. They're fantastic at it. Mike Elko gets you in third and long pretty often, and then he's going to toss some pretty exotic looks at you. You're not going to see a lot of the same thing on third down from Texas A&M. They've got one of the best pass rushers in the country in Cassius Howell. He was a first-team All-American. And the same, you flip it over to the other side, same goes for Miami. They've given up 20-plus points, I think it was 4 times this season. One of them was Notre Dame. The other two were Louisville and SMU. And then the other one was Florida State, who they beat. And Florida State only got 20 on them because of a late charge in the fourth quarter.
Right.
Which really wasn't all that much of a
kind
threat.
of a garbage time,
Yeah. So Miami's defense is what Miami's defense is. Now you flip it around in the most important pieces. Not that this is breaking news to anybody who watches football, but it's the two quarterbacks on both of these teams. Marcel Reed, and really the reason that Texas A&M played as well as they did this year, was he's always been a great runner. He was a great runner last year, but he had evolved as a passer throughout this year. And in the recent games, it's looked a lot more shaky through the air for Marcel Reed. Things haven't seen, the picture hasn't been as clear for him, it appears, when he's back there. And in terms of Carson Beck, I know he's cleaned it up since SMU, but that's a 4-game sample size. And you can pitch me this, this is the mark where he would be at if he had been healthy going into camp and all that. That's nice. The fact of the matter is that dating back to his time at Georgia, he had turnover problems. He had interception problems. He's known to force the ball into some situations. And so when I look at these defenses and I look at the way they're aligned, is I would trust Marcel Reed a little bit more in terms of his decision making, simply for the fact that he has another avenue to beat you with, and that's his legs. Carson Beck doesn't have that. Marcel Reed also has the luxury of Casey Conception and Mario Craver. Mario Craver is one of the fastest wide receivers in football. That can't be ignored. You go over to Miami. Miami's got some solid wideouts. Malachi Tony's obviously the highlight, but they're going to have to run the football effectively against Texas A&M if they're going to win this game.
Well, we got two incredibly talented defensive minds in Kirby and Mike Elko. And I'm like you. I don't know where to go with this, but the one thing I do know from experience is it's tough to play at Kyle Field in College Station, and I would give them. I'm giving A&M a slight edge over them because they're playing at home, and not that Miami isn't capable of playing in front of big crowds, but it's going to be difficult to hear, and that makes it difficult for Carson Bennett to do any kind of changing out. If he comes up to the line and sees that Elko has changed the defense on him, he's screwed, because nobody's going to hear him. They're going to have to figure out how to play that with the hand signals or something, because it's that's one of the biggest problems down at that stadium, is that you just can't hear if you're the opposing team. It is just deafening.
Mhm.
And I do like how Mike does his defense. Not that Kirby doesn't, but I think that, like you said, if you've got quarterback, he's got some legs, which Carson doesn't. He can get out of some problems, but it's not something he would want to be doing all day long. So
Mhm.
we'll see. We will see if Miami can put together an offensive plan that can get them past what in essence is a defense that is really, really good. I'm
Mhm.
going to skip the Washington Philadelphia football game tomorrow because honestly, um, if Philadelphia loses that, they don't even deserve to go to the playoffs.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I'm going to get on a soapbox here for a minute.
Sure.
The NFL and college football are supposed to work together, right? Like that
Normally, yeah.
seems
Yeah.
like in theory they should work together. The NFL just seems to try to step on college football's toes as much as they can. I mean, you've scheduled two, and I mean that second one is really a primetime football game
Sure.
on one of college football's biggest days of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what are we doing? Why? There's no reason to have a game on Saturday. It's not Super Wild Card Weekend or something like this. What are we doing having these games on Saturday? I hate that from a scheduling dynamic,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't understand why the NFL just insists on stepping on college football's toes. I mean, we've already got to play a championship game on a Monday night because the NFL won't move their stuff around. And this is just another example. I don't get why they step on the toes of college football as much as they insist on doing for whatever reason.
Well, I mean, they've been playing the NFL now. They've been playing NFL football on Saturdays after the college football season now for, I think it's 15, 20 years. It's been a
Mm-hmm.
long time. So it's not like this is new. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What's new is the playoffs.
Yeah.
And you could argue or could say, maybe we could work together and say, you know what? How about we do this? How about we play the afternoon and you guys play, prime time?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I've had an argument with a number of people, including Bob Thompson, my old buddy from Fox Sports, who was a president, was a president of Fox Sports at one time, that college football championship game should be on a Friday night. It should never be on Monday night.
No.
And because you get, you it's 11 days between the time the two teams make it to the playoffs to the championship to the time they play it, and they play it on a Monday night.
Mm-hmm.
I've never thought that was a good idea, and I think Friday night makes more sense. There's no NFL game on a Friday night. You've
Mm-hmm.
got it all to yourself. You've got all day Saturday to hang out and bitch about what you've won or celebrate because you lost or
Mm-hmm.
celebrate because you won. Um, to me, that makes a hell of a lot more sense than doing it on Monday night. And so from that, I don't get why the CFP puts the championship game on a Monday night, one on a Friday night. To me, would be much, much better.
Yeah, no. It seems like there's like and to be honest with you, like again, this goes back to the working together because
Mm-hmm.
I think the NFL benefits from college football being a better product
Mm-hmm.
overall.
Sure.
Why Saturday has always been college football's day? Why
Mm-hmm.
would you not give them one Saturday back? Like, can we not move some stuff around? Maybe move some games up. Give college football the late window there on Saturday. Friday night's better than anything's better than Monday night. To be honest with you,
Right.
I'd rather them play it on Thursday than they play it on Monday.
Yeah. I like Friday only because you don't have to work the next day necessarily, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's traditionally a Friday night lights type of thing. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
the NFL and college football have never really worked together. I'm not
No.
quite sure what has happened in that situation, whether it's been one side or the other deciding what the hell they're going to do. But at the end of the day, I just have not seen them have ever worked together. I mean, Tagliabue, when they started the BCS stuff, made an effort to try to help them out from a scheduling standpoint, trying to make sure that he didn't step on them and they didn't step on him. But, if you look at what happened, the NFL just crushed Christmas Day, which used to belong to the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
The NBA had 4 games on Christmas Day. Guess what? Now the NFL has 3 football games on. 2 on, 2 on Netflix and 1 on Prime. Okay, granted, you're saying, well, they're on streaming services. Well, guess what? Doesn't matter. Streaming services right now, Netflix is the biggest, and oh, by the way, Prime's the second largest. So you're not really helping the NBA out by crushing them on Christmas Day. The NBA attempted to do something. They're just trying to do something. They tried to do something on Thanksgiving. That didn't work. From that standpoint. So now we're getting, there was the NHL decided to do the Winter Classic, right? And they thought, okay, well, let's just put it on, nice on New Year's Day, because we can put it on between a couple of bowl games, and the world will be okay with it. And all of a sudden now that's crushed. So it's like the NFL has decided no. No, any competition we may have, we are going to go and we're going to crush it. Because now they've got Christmas with 3 days of football. They go Saturday, then they go to Sunday, and then they go to Monday. So you're basically making certain that anything that's in competition with you is totally off the chart.
Yeah. Does the NFL play on New Year's Day?
Only if it's a Saturday or Sunday.
Let's see here. So they do not play on New Year's Day. They all of their games are on the 4th, January 4th.
Right.
Or the 3rd. No, but New Year's Day is now going to be dominated by the playoff,
right,
for as long as we have the current structure that we have. I don't know. I guess maybe greed, I guess, would be the best way to describe it. But that's what the NFL is. They're just coming in and they're crushing everything. But I mean, the matter of the fact is that the size of the NFL, if they want it to be their holiday, it'll be their holiday. For the most part. So,
well, they had the 800-pound gorilla at this point. And in fairness to the NFL, and I'm not taking up for the NFL, I'm just making a statement here. College football hasn't made it easy on them either, from the standpoint of schedule situations and screwing things up with regard to how there's no reason why Greg Sankey or whomever is in charge, of maybe the CFP, right? We sit down and call Roger Goodell and say, hey, can we sit down and we can figure this out? I don't think Roger Goodell would have a problem sitting down and trying to figure something out, as long as it made sense. So, my understanding is I don't think anybody's ever made that phone call. At least I've never heard of it being made. The guys at Front Office Sports Business Journal, not a word from them that's ever happened. So, not since Patagley and the CFP the BCS, has there even been any discussion about it. So, until somebody sits down and decides, it makes sense to try to play together, they're not going to play together.
That'll start with college football having a commissioner. That's where that would start.
I agree. And I think between now and the time that they extend this to 16 games, when they're going to have more, windows, TV windows. And it's going to be tough on TV networks because, Fox is involved in the playoffs. So is ESPN. ESPN's a partner. ESPN is now even a more of a partner because they bought the NFL network. So, that's a problem for them. We've already established the bowl games was a problem for them because they have a chance of losing some serious cash on that deal because of opt-outs in the bowls. So they have to balance college football and the NFL. NBC has to balance college football and the NFL. CBS has to do it, and to a lesser extent, Fox and Turner. But yeah, they all have interest in both areas, and now we're gonna have to worry about which one of those areas can they come out.
Mm-hmm.
Let's pop down to the
3:30 game.
I was going to say that, yeah, the Tulane's, Tulane and James Madison. Man, maybe James Madison would have a chance. I don't.
Yeah.
It's tough to play at Oregon, and Oregon's a very talented team. I don't know. And here's the thing, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. Whether it's Tulane or James Madison or whomever it is, the problem is not that does Tulane have good football players. That's not the problem. Or James Madison for that matter.
Mm-hmm.
It's depth. It's depth. It's a matter of I got 11 good players on my offense. I got maybe 9 good players on my defense. But, an Oregon can run 14 and 15 and 16 deep on each side of the ball that you can't. And after a while, it just wears you down.
Yeah, so depth's a big thing. Speed on the outside in terms of your corners and your wide receivers, safeties as well.
Sure.
That's a differential as well when you're looking at these things. I'll be honest. I was doing the Oregon JMU, and I was looking through stats for both of these games, and because nobody gives them a chance, so I'm trying to find like through the stats profile here, like what's their best path, like what's the way that they're going to win this football game. Looking at Tulane and all of the ones that I chose and I deemed personally relevant. Tulane's a pretty average team across the board in terms of their stats. They're not great at one thing. They're not really bad at anything either, unless you want to count their ability to return punts or how many penalties they get, because they're 108th in the country in terms of penalties per game, and they're 114th in punt return defense, or no, that's just punt returns in general. My bad. And they're 122nd in pass defense. Tulane is. There's nothing outstanding about them. They're 11th in turnover margin. That's really their most outstanding stat. But in terms of James Madison, because this is the interesting one to me.
Let me ask you a quick question about Tulane before we get to James Madison. Sorry for interrupting. Summerall's is he coaching or not coaching that game?
He is coaching.
That's what I thought. Yeah. I thought he was coaching that game. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, in terms of the Ole Miss Tulane game, like I looked at it, I'm just not sure where their edge is going to be. They don't have a talent edge. They're not playing at home. Ole Miss is obviously expecting them. Your edge is going to come for Tulane. Like if they win, they're going to have turned Ole Miss over a bunch of times. And 2, they're going to have found a couple stops in there to go along with those turnovers, because Ole Miss's offense versus Tulane's defense looks like a glaring mismatch on paper. They have a chance to prove me wrong. Maybe Trinidad Chambliss already has his eyes set on LSU. Maybe Quan Lacey already has his eyes set on LSU as well. You never know what the internal dynamics maybe of that locker room are since everything went down. It's hard to believe that's not going to play some impact on this game.
Well, wouldn't you? I'm sorry. I was just going to say, wouldn't you think that if I'm playing for Ole Miss, I'm going to prove that Lane Kiffin made a mistake by going to LSU, or at least I'm going to want to make that mistake.
Yeah, and I think there's going to be a good bit of that sentiment, but you also have to remember that this is a team that is built primarily out of the portal. Like right. that was Lane's primary recruiting tool. Sure. And so, if it's guns for hire, right. and I'm there because of Lane, I don't really care that Lane left, all things right. considered. He just did the same thing that I did, except he's got a different title than I do.
Right.
And, there's a real good chance that a bunch of them follow him there, especially on that offensive side of the football.
Sure.
So there is that aspect of it. I do think there's going to be a strong sentiment in that locker room of people that want to prove Lane Kiffin wrong. I do. I like a togetherness factor. I just wonder how impactful it is in that locker room, to be honest with you.
Sure. Fair enough. All right, off to James Madison we go.
And yeah, so again, Ole Miss Tulane tried to find the edge, couldn't really find the edge. James Madison was interesting though. They you look at their resume, nothing impressive. They played one Power Four team in Louisville. They lost by 14 points. They were on the road. They did have a third quarter lead in that game. That is of note.
That's something.
Yeah, it's of note. But in turn, they've played 0 top 50 teams. James Madison has. There is that. But their ability to control the game via the running game, and it's on both sides of the ball. They're second in the country in rushing defense, and they're fifth in the country in rushing offense. Those are really nice stats on their own. But the one that stuck out to me was this time of possession. They are second in the country in terms of time of possession. And what that indicates to me is that JMU has been controlling football games. And so I was like, okay, that's really good. It's going to be like I'm fully expecting, based on my, just the idea that I have in my head of G5 teams and the way that things typically go, is I'm expecting to pull up this depth chart, look at their starting offensive line, and see a bunch of 280 pounders out there and know that Oregon's just going to push them around. That was not the case. Across the line, James Madison offensive line goes 323, 313,
Wow.
302, 291, and 305. You compare that across the line, Oregon's D line, and they run that a little bit of that odd 3-3-5 mix where it's for that mint formation, to where you have that jack backer that likes to drop in coverage and rush. So it's a combo.
Right.
But if you're including him as a rusher, you got 272, 302, 330, and 263 across that Oregon defensive line, at least in the starters. That's where, you can start to get into those depth conversations. But they match up very similarly in terms of scoring offense and defense. Oregon's ninth in scoring defense, James Madison's 10th. Oregon's ninth in scoring offense, James Madison's 10th in scoring offense. So like their stat profiles match up really well, all things considered. But this is the way that James Madison's going to win this football game. It's got to look a lot like that Louisville win over Miami in Week 8 this year, where Louisville, they had a disproportionate amount of turnovers relative to what Miami had. When you win the turnover battle in the way that Louisville won the turnover battle, then you can afford to have a talent disadvantage. You can afford to not score on some drives because of the way you're playing on defense. They're James Madison's 76 in the country in turnover margin. Oregon's tied for 18th. James Madison is going to have some bounce ball plays go their way, and they're going to have to control this game in the run game. I put it out there in the article that I wrote at the very end. I said I think if James Madison was playing Ole Miss, I think I'd pick James Madison to win that game. On paper, it makes sense. That matchup would favor James Madison, because the reason that it doesn't is there's so many outside dynamics that go against James Madison. I mean, people can say what they want to. Playing a night game matters. Like the crowd is always going to be more juiced up for a night game. That Watson Stadium is fantastic. People, they call it one of the more underrated environments. At a certain point, when you talk about it being underrated enough, it stops becoming underrated and just is what it is. And then they go on the road. It's like 2,800 miles they're traveling. That's not an easy trip. And if you don't believe me, ask all the Big Ten teams that have to travel out to USC, UCLA, and it's not an easy trip to go that far in the time change. That's going to play a factor as well. Also, Oregon's getting healthy. They're getting some guys back. Decorion Moore, I think, was practicing again this week. He's an important piece of that wide receiver core. It's one of the things about the Oregon offense that I've been wary of, is they haven't looked good, but they've been missing a lot of pieces throughout a lot of the year in terms of injury. So they don't like – I just don't see – if all of the outside factors went the other way and James Madison was going there in week 3 and they showed me this profile on paper, then I might be inclined to pick James Madison. I just find a really, really hard time believing that I'm going to pick a game based on bounce of ball plays. I'm trying to predict the unpredictable that way if I'm picking James Madison, which I'm just not going to do.
Let me ask you this. This is how I look at it from my standpoint anyway. Ben, that's a wonderful stadium to watch a game at. at Oregon. This is the biggest game that James Madison University has ever played. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
James Madison is a incredibly lovely private school,
Mm-hmm.
in Virginia. As you say, 2,800 miles away. If this game were being played in the Orange Bowl, if it were being played on a neutral site anywhere other
Mm-hmm.
than Eugene, Oregon, I would feel a whole lot better about James Madison's chances of pulling an upset. That was we've seen the upsets of UCF going out and winning in Tempe over Oklahoma. We've seen it's happened. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
it has happened, but now that we have this new system where you're playing the playoff game is at your home stadium, man, that's just such an incredible um, advantage. I mean, if James Madison took 10,000 people to Oregon, which they're not, but if they
Mm-hmm.
could, that would be an amazing amount of people for James
Mm-hmm.
Madison. So the amount of people that James Madison is going to get there is going to be wonderful for them. I mean, they for them it's a big deal, and they've
Mm-hmm.
done really well getting people out there. And I gotta, we both have been very complimentary to what James Madison has done in a very short time in being in this division, and they've done phenomenal work.
Mm-hmm.
But man, it's just going to be tough for them to play on the road in the biggest game that they've ever played. They've never played on a national television, situation like this, prime time, across the country. Um, and it's going to be tough. It will be tough for them to play that game
Yeah.
against Oregon.
Yeah.
Impossible? No, but
No.
tough, yes.
No, I will say one of the more mind-numbing narratives, and to be honest with you, it's something that I've kind of flipped my thinking on
Mm-hmm,
in the past weeks. I've just been doing a little more research, looking at
mm-hmm,
stuff. This notion that if these teams get blown out, it's the worst thing in the world. It's not.
mm-hmm,
SMU got boat raced at Penn State last year.
mm-hmm,
Uh, you know, Ohio State left a bloodied orange Tennessee jersey left. That
mm-hmm,
was all that was left of Tennessee
mm-hmm.
on that field in Columbus, Ohio last
Right.
year. Like this playoff is not immune. Playoffs have not been immune to blowouts
Yeah.
in the past.
Mm-hmm,
They're going to happen. They may happen in a spot that you're not expecting it.
mm-hmm,
Miami may blow out A&M. A&M may blow out Miami. Same goes for that Alabama-Oklahoma game tonight. That
mm-hmm.
can happen. It can happen in the next round too.
Sure.
Ohio State boat raced Oregon in the Rose Bowl last year.
Mm-hmm.
It
Right.
was not a close game there either. So in this format, you're not immune to blowouts. And to be honest
Mm-hmm.
with you, blowouts happen anyway. It happened in the SEC title game.
Sure.
It happened in the Big 12 title game. So like
Mm-hmm.
this notion that these games and these teams being in is a detriment to college football because it's going to be a blowout. It's not. It seems a bit disingenuous because blowouts happen anyways. It's the nature of the sport. It can happen if I talked about it with James Madison. If the bounce of ball plays
Mm-hmm.
sway heavily in favor of one team, blowouts can happen in the other direction as well,
Mm-hmm.
especially when you're on a similar field or on a similar playing field in terms of your
Mm-hmm.
talent level. Then if you get 2-3 bounce of ball plays that go your way that didn't go the other way, then yeah, blowouts happen all the time. So, it's not going to be the end of the world because these teams are in here. I think it's going to result in some change probably in the
Mm-hmm.
coming future. I am a bit wary on why there are two G5 teams. That's not my favorite thing in the world. But this notion that it's some cardinal sin that these guys are in the playoff is ridiculous because, quite frankly, James Madison did pretty much all they were asked to do. The only thing they could have done was finish the job at Louisville.
Right.
Tulane they were deemed the best G5 champion of the bunch.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I can argue back and forth based on the research I've done on Tulane and what
Right.
I've found. And really, you go back and look at their schedule, and you're like, how impressive was Tulane?
Well,
this year?
they were the survivor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really what it was.
Mm-hmm.
So there is that aspect of it, but I know it's going to happen. It was always going to happen. It's happened prior, and it'll happen after. But if or when one of these teams get blown out, there's going to be just insanity in terms of public discourse online.
It's funny. Just before we get out of the Tulane game and into the Green Bay and Chicago, looking at all across the American, which Tulane, of course, won. I gotta tell you, Navy might have been the best team in the conference.
Yeah, I mean Navy was they were sound. Talk about the bounce of ball plays, like Army won those bounce of ball plays against Navy, and Navy still found a way to win that football game in a manner that they like it was. That game is always in that real knockdown, drag out fashion in terms of the physicality, and they found a way to win even when they weren't really winning the turnover battle for the majority of that game. Obviously, they got an interception late, and that helped swing things back to their favor.
I remember the other day when we were at the game, the buzz in the press box was, "My God, Navy won the game on a pass."
And I mean that was a great pass. That was such a well-timed pass.
That was that's a dart. He hit him right there, and you're like, man, wait a minute, that's Navy throwing the ball.
Yeah, I mean, you want to talk about a stark contrast versus our port. I mean, not to rag on the guy, but that Army quarterback, God bless him, he rolled out and he tried to unload one, and he just could not get it there.
No, that was. Passing is optional when it comes to Army, but a couple weeks ago, when the Green Bay was healthy, this might have been an interesting game. But Green Bay is not healthy, have been playing very well lately, and good heavens, Chicago's got a franchise quarterback here.
Yeah, they've played a lot better as of late. It seemed like they weathered the storm in terms of some of those close games that they played a little bit earlier in the year. You're still going to have close results. I wouldn't expect this thing to be a blowout either way.
Yeah,
but Green Bay is just one of these teams where if they just kind of like Jordan Love just kind of shows up when they need him most. He did it on Thanksgiving. Sure. And to be honest with you, I'm halfway expecting him to do it again.
He might
tomorrow. At some point, and I'm not saying this entirely because it's the same argument that people use against the Patriots, but fool's gold. It feels like they've walked a pretty thin line, and you would expect one of these results to flip. It's the same thing I've talked about with Kansas City in terms of this year and last year with them. Is where Kansas City won all of the 50-50 games last year, and they're losing all of them this year. So far, Chicago's won pretty much all of their 50-50 games, really since they've been on this run. And so it's still not an easy matchup. I know now they don't have Micah Parsons to worry about, and that's an impact on that defense. Pretty sure they lost their defensive tackle, Devontae Wyatt, as well earlier in the year.
He's not going to play
for the year. Yeah, so their defensive line has suffered some injuries, and that takes a toll and an impact, especially when you have an offense that's clicking like they are. But in terms of Chicago, a guy who's come on strong for them really in the latter half of the season, Luther Burden, has already been ruled out for this game tomorrow. So that's going to be a hit for that Chicago offense.
The way I was looking at it from a standpoint of one, the Bears forever have not had a franchise quarterback, and I think Caleb Williams is playing much better than, in his second season, obviously, than he did in his first. And with Campbell as his coach, he's going to get better at it. It's kind of like two teams that are mirror of each other, right? They're on the razor's edge. Either one of them, we would be surprised if either one of them, if Green Bay won the game, I wouldn't be surprised. If Chicago won the game, I wouldn't be surprised either. But I'm just thinking trending right now, Chicago seems to be trending better than what's going on in Green Bay. And this is it's an important game. It's an important game for Chicago. And if you're going to take the next step, this is when you do it.
Yeah, you'll hear it in reference to the college football playoffs. Really,
Mm-hmm.
when we get into the really more of that second round, they talk about
Sure.
momentum.
Right.
Momentum matters in football. Believe it or not, like there's a lot of factors that matter. Momentum does matter a lot, and Chicago has it. Green Bay just doesn't. Green Bay honestly feels a little bit deflated, at least from a fan perspective. They feel
Mm-hmm.
deflated in terms of their season long prospects. Now that Parsons is out, Parsons is important, but man, you still got some football games left to play.
Sure.
Season's not dead for you guys,
Mm-hmm.
so they need to go make the most of every opportunity they can. And
Mm-hmm.
if they get this win against Chicago, you want to talk about like momentum can flip. Momentum flips in basketball games all the time. Like even
Sure.
when it feels like one team is rolling and they're just not going to be stopped.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes a turnover and a 3-pointer or a dunk, it can shift it just that quick.
Sure.
Same thing can go for Green Bay. If they get some momentum going in this game and Chicago feels like it's starting to slip a little bit, maybe they start to press a little bit more, the momentum can flip to Green Bay. And if they can create it out of this game, it's something they can carry throughout the last 2 games, I
Sure.
believe, of the
They got
season.
3 more games left
Yeah.
after this one. Yeah.
And into the playoffs, which
Right.
is, massive in terms of going into the playoffs. You need momentum
Mm-hmm.
for the NFL and for college football both.
Sure. Before we get out of here, talking about momentum, I have a superstition, and it has to do in college basketball. I want the team that I want to win the championship to lose one game before the end of the season, whether it's in the tournament, in their tournament, the kind of the SEC tournament or whatever tournament you happen to be watching. And I think for Los Angeles last night, I know you're a fan of Matt Stafford. That losing that game last night wasn't the worst thing that would happen, and I would hope that they go back, they reset. Shawn, resets everything, and they go, okay, we focus now. We focus on finishing the thing, and that kind of momentum can fly through the playoffs and all take them to the Super Bowl. So I wasn't happy in the way they lost. They were up 16 points in the fourth quarter. You don't like losing that game that way.
No.
But again, you mentioned that Matt Stafford cemented himself as the MVP, and he already was probably a first ballot Hall of Famer in the first place. But I don't look at the Rams any less of a championship contender than I did, before the game was played in Seattle last night.
Yeah, if anything, again, it's talked about it before. Proof of concept here for LA. Like you thought they were a good team. You knew they were a good team. They had a great record. They've got some really nice wins. That's arguably the second best team in football, or the first best team in football. And you arguably should have won that football game. Not only should you arguably have won that football game, you did it without your number 2 receiver. Devontae Adams was not there. Like, he wasn't present in that game. So that's important. I did think it was funny, or not funny. Another interesting little tidbit as I continue to make the Matthew Stafford case for MVP. 9 different guys caught a football last night. Spreading the wealth. They all didn't have the 12 catches and 225 yards that Puka Nacua had, but he spread the wealth in terms of getting the ball to different guys and working that football down the field in the absence of a running game.
Who was I can't remember his name. He's the tight end from Pitt, the rookie, that plays for the Rams. That Stafford hit a couple times for some big gains.
I'm gonna have to look that up. I cannot. Okay. I do not know it off the top of my head.
I don't either. I'm sorry, gang, but they have a rookie tight end from Pitt who did a really nice job last night in running routes for Stafford. He did drop a couple of passes, which happened, but definitely came through with some clutch passes and catching some Stafford passes to get some first downs and keep them ahead of the chain. So that's a good one. All right, so we've got.
Is
go
it
ahead.
Davis Allen?
Yes, it is.
He's from Clemson.
Oh, he's from Clemson. Okay, wait a minute. We do.
Kanata Mumfield is a wide receiver from Pitt, and he had 8 catches for 82 yards and a touchdown.
Well, then that would be the guy I was thinking about. But on the broadcast last night, they mentioned he was a tight end, which I guess he is not. All right, so
Never
there you
mind.
go.
Okay, all right, my bad. I just read his season stats. So 8 catches, 82 yards, and a touchdown is his season stats. Last
Okay.
night he had 3 catches for 40 yards.
Right, but it seemed like they were the catches that they needed to have at the time he got them. So timing
Yeah,
also is everything. So
yeah.
anyway, thanks for getting the name. All right, let's get out of here. We got a weekend of football from starting tonight and going all day through it. There are games being played as we speak, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, you've got a bowl game that's set to kick off in about an hour and a half as well between Memphis and NC State.
They had the Gasparilla Bowl down in Tampa. And Memphis will be without their coach, and they'll be without about 10 starting players on that team. So good luck to the Tigers in that ball game. Was they're playing North Carolina State, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think anybody left North Carolina State.
No, their quarterback is somebody who I think they're unsure if he's going to return or not.
Right.
But I don't think he's sitting this game out.
I don't think he put up enough numbers to go anywhere to put. I don't know if he goes somewhere, it's going to be because he's got a good sales job to get out of there. Because I don't remember him putting up any numbers. But anyway, so any final thoughts coming into this weekend?
No, I would just emphasize blowouts aren't the end of the world. Enjoy the playoffs. You only have so many of what people have now told you are meaningful football games.
Right.
So you got 4 this weekend. You'll get 4 on the New Year's Eve weekend. So 1 on the 31st, 3 on the 1st, and then you'll have 3 more after that. So enjoy them while they're here. These are your best products left in football because you don't really have to worry about opt-outs and transfers as much.
If you were concerned about blowouts, then there wouldn't be a Super Bowl, because there were a number of blowouts early in the Super Bowl years where people would say they tune in for the commercials because the football wasn't being played that well.
Yeah, hey, Peyton Manning got blown out in the Super Bowl.
Right. Didn't seem to hurt his career. John Elway got blown out in the Super Bowl by a Washington team that I think the record still stands for the most points scored in one quarter in that game. But there were some duds in that Super Bowl situation as well. So hasn't always been the case. So being blown out doesn't mean the team's bad. It just means they have a bad day. That's everybody's got one. All right. Y'all have a great weekend. Enjoy the bonanza of football, which starts tonight and goes all the way through till Monday. So I've got a ton of football going on. If you're going to find a college game or a pro game to watch today and tomorrow and Sunday and then Monday night. So all good going on. So have a wonderful weekend, everybody. We'll have a better look at what's the playoff situation, because there's a lot of key games being played this weekend. Tampa Bay and Carolina play each other. Baltimore has a big game against New England. The Steelers play Detroit. So there's a lot of meaningful games being played, on Sunday that I think been kind of undervalued. But we will be back to find out, what happened while we were gone on the weekends. Until then, for Matt, I'm Jim. Have a wonderful weekend, everybody.